Hi guys, D Forte here. Today I'm going to show you how you can repurpose a machine that has no floppy diskette drive but a CD-ROM drive as a DOS machine. A lot of computers from the mid 90s, late 90s do have a CD-ROM drive, but they do not have floppy drives anymore. So we will get DOS installed on the hard drive, and I'll show you how to do that. So what we're going to do is select the option Create Image File from Files/Folders. Then what we're going to do is go over to this Advanced tab on the right and select Bootable Disk. And we're going to check the box that says Make Image Bootable. The software I'm using, of course, is called Image Burn or IMG Burn. It's free and it's fantastic software. So the emulation type, we're going to change that drop-down list to a floppy disk 1.44 megabytes. And we're going to select a boot image, which mine is under a folder called Floppy Images. Now, if you download an image file from the internet, it might have an extension of .flp, so it's not going to show up in this list. So what we can do in the file name is just say show star.star all files. And here is the DRDOS6 boot disk that I'm going to use. And you'll notice it's roughly 1.44 megabytes. It's important that the image file you're using is a dump of a floppy, not a hard drive, not an ISO image. This will have FAT12 as the file system inside it. Okay, so we open that, and then we just hit the build option. And we're going to change to floppy images. We'll just save it there as an ISO file because that's what CD-ROM drives use. And we'll call it drdos6.iso. drdos6, we can leave these names, that's fine. Do we want to use this volume label? We'll say yes. It prompts, just say OK. And it's completed. Now the next thing to do is to burn this to a real CD. So we're going to reopen Image Burn. This time we're going to say write image file to disk. And we click Browse for File. And we're going to pick our ISO image. When you're ready, you just click Write. This is now burning a bootable CD drive. Now what it actually does is emulate a floppy drive. So it's not technically booting as a floppy. It still has, the CD formats, the formats that CD drives use, the file systems, which is UDF or ISO with, Juliet extensions or whatever. It's not FAT12, but it emulates it and it works great on these machines that can boot from CD-ROM drives. Okay, so it's completed. So our next step is to show you how it actually boots up. Okay, now that we have the CD created with DOS emulated as a floppy diskette, we're going to boot the computer. Now this particular BIOS requires us to press F12 to get to the boot menu. And in this particular screen, we go down to IDE CD-ROM device. And this is a DRDOS message here, if we're asking if we want to load Superstore. Say no. And there we go. Now what we can do, check, see how much memory. So we have 573K of conventional free. If we try to go to the C drive, there's nothing there. Because this particular computer that I'm working on has been formatted with NTFS and had Windows XP on it. So we're going to go ahead and destroy that partition so we can install DOS. So we're going to use, of course, fdisk. And right there you can see it sees the drive, and it roughly sees 130 gigabytes. So we're going to do one, create DOS primary partition. Okay, it says there's not enough space to create another partition. So we'll delete it. And it's not wanting us to delete because it says the type is other. Let's see if we can rewrite the master boot record. And that failed as well, saying the operation was unsuccessful. It's funny that DR-DOS thinks there's no partitions created yet. But then when we go to create a partition, it says there's not enough storage space. So we may have to approach this in a different manner using a different tool or different options. So I checked the parameters that can be passed to FDisk. This is DR-DOS's FDisk, remember. And it does have an option to allow unknown partition types to be deleted. So that's what we need to do. So we're going to do an fdisk /d. So now we're going to delete a partition. 2, delete primary. There we go. Enter partition 1. Do we want to erase? Yes. And now we can create our partition. The maximum size it looks like it can do is roughly 8 gigabytes. So give it a label. And it's doing its thing. Not sure how long this will take, so I might pause the video and come back. Well, it's been over 2 hours and it's still sitting here, so I'm not sure what the deal is. I think I may force the computer off and try it again because it's not going anywhere. And the strange thing is the numlock key still works on the keyboard, because I thought maybe the keyboard had somehow disconnected or lost power, but it is actually trying to do a partition creation. It's just not finishing. So we'll reboot and see what it looks like. Okay, rebooted. Let's see what happens here. It says no partitions defined yet. So I typed it in and hit enter again. And it just really seems to be hung up. So I'll see if I can figure out some other way around this and be back. Alright, I'm going to try to create a smaller partition. Start cylinder 0. Let's just make this pretty small and go to cylinder 100. There we go. So there was some kind of bug or limitation with it trying to go over about 8 gigabytes. That's okay, we don't need that much space. We can always create another partition anyway. Success! So we have about a 800 megabyte partition there, so we can format it and install DRDOS. It's got to reload. It's trying to boot from the hard drive now because there was a partition. Before it would skip and go straight to the CD-ROM drive. So I am going to have to tell it at the boot menu now to go straight to CD-ROM drive instead of having it just try to automatically go there. Press an F12 for the boot menu. Okay, CD-ROM again. You can see how troubleshooting can be quite involved. Just basically takes a lot of experience and knowledge to work through these kinds of problems. Now we should be able to format that partition. So we need to do the /X. That formats a fixed disk. Already is formatted. That's strange. So it just needs the operating system on it. So typically I didn't think that FDisk actually formatted the drive, but evidently this one is. Okay, so let's go ahead and format it again, and we'll do the system files. Saying invalid parameters. Let me see what I'm doing wrong here. Oh, it wants the drive letter first. Format :/X/S. There we go. Okay. The system files are now on it. So we can see the command com. I don't have a trib on the CD, so I can't see the hidden files, but there is some hidden files here also. But let's go ahead and see if install will work now. Okay, it doesn't really have any options. It's saying install shouldn't be run directly from the command line. So I think what's happening here is since it booted from this emulated floppy diskette drive, it doesn't really know that we did do this from startup drive. That's just the quirkiness with the emulation. But we can still just copy the file straight away because it will boot. So let's just do that. I'm going to make a directory md drdos. We're going to change to that directory cd space drdos. And we're going to do a copy space :/star.star. Okay, so we have most of the DOS files on here now. So we should just be able to reboot. I'm going to eject the CD. CD ejected. Control delete, and we'll see if it boots to the hard drive with DRDOS. Of course, we're missing our config sys and auto exec bat, so no drivers or anything are going to load. But that's okay, that could be done manually. It said cannot load file, press any key. Let's go into the boot menu and try to boot the hard drive directly. Cannot load file. It could be because the config sys is missing. So let's go ahead and put CD back in. And we'll just create essentially an empty config sys. Or we'll look at what's on the floppy diskette and maybe just copy that one, modify it. When I say floppy diskette, I mean the CD, of course, because we're emulating. So that's all that's in the config sys there. So let's go ahead and just create our own. I'll show you a special command where you can actually output straight to a text file from the command prompt. So we're going to do type space greater than symbol. Well, let me type the text first. We're going to say hi DOS equals on. Then we're going to do a space greater than config.sys. Didn't like that. Let's take a look at the parameters. Let me see if I can use the pipe command. Well, maybe what we can do is type the text. Oh, wait a minute. No, I know what I'm doing wrong. I need to do the echo command. So we're going to echo hi DOS equals on. We're going to redirect that to config.sys. There we go. Now let's type config.sys to see what's in it. Okay, so that's what I was missing. It had been probably 15-20 years since I'd done that. The echo command just outputs something, and then if you use the greater than symbol, you can redirect it to a file. And that's just a little trick. That's a quick way to do something. Then you don't have to use a text editor. Alright, so let's see if it is okay with it now. I'm not sure if it will be. I'm going to go into the boot menu just to make sure it goes straight to the hard drive. Cannot load file. Okay, let's go into the BIOS and see if it has a setting set for the operating system. So F2 gets us in there on this particular setting. Okay. I'm just looking for something about the operating system type, maybe. There's not much in this. Fast boot's on. I'm going to turn that off. I'm not really sure what that means. That might bypass post messages that diagnoses the hardware. ID drive UDMA on. I'm not sure about that option. It should not affect it, but you just never know. We're going to turn off diskette interface while I'm in here since there's no diskette drive. Yeah, I'm not sure about this one. That's just information. It's the boot sequence, doesn't matter. Okay. Yeah, I don't really see much in here that will help us. But let's restart. I may have to try to format this in a different way. Yep. See, the command.com's there. Since I don't have a trib, I can't see the hidden files. Let me see if I could do it with dir. Display files without the system attribute set. Display files with the system attribute set. Okay, so let's try that command. Nothing there, but that doesn't mean, because there's still a hidden attribute too. The files will be hidden, system, and read only. I wonder if it just failed to copy the system files. Let's just do a straight out sys command to see. I mean, the command com was there, so it should have been there. Yeah, see, I don't think this dir command is showing the hidden files. The only other thing I can think of is, since this is booting the way it is and being emulated, it isn't smart enough to do those hidden IBM files. Let me see if they're on the CD. Doesn't show anything there. I mean, that may be the problem. So what I'm going to do is create a new CD, put a trib on that, and make sure a trib's in there so I can definitely check for hidden files. Also check for the IBM files to make sure that they're actually on this CD. And I will be back. Alright, had another thought. I'm going to use the xdir command. Which comes with DRDOS. that does allow looking at all attributes. So we're going to do hidden, read-only, system. Yeah, there they are. Okay, so the IBM hidden files are there. That's a good thing that the emulation software was smart enough to copy those there. Because really, it is DOS running, otherwise it wouldn't have asked the question about loading Superstore and FDisk run, everything working. So all the hidden files are there. It does not make sense to me why it's having a problem saying that the files aren't there when I'm trying to boot. It's like there's something wrong with the boot sector. So I may FDisk this again and then do a sys straight to it instead of formatting like I did, and see if that makes a difference. It was already set bootable, I just wanted to double check that. Okay, here we go again. Going from a floppy diskette is obviously much easier because that's what it's designed to do. But I am going to make this work, going from a CD drive. And then hopefully you'll be able to do it as well if you're interested in it. This would work too if you have a computer that doesn't have a USB port, because USB makes it a lot easier, of course, where you could boot to that and get any files you want on it. But this is just assuming all you have is a CD-ROM drive and a hard drive internal, and that's it. So you can't, plug in an external USB floppy or anything like that. Okay, the operating system needs to be reloaded. So we're going to do this again, and we'll do this sys command. Okay, system files copied. Let's see if it actually works. Boot hard disk. There we go. So the format command somehow screwed up the boot sector or something else. I don't know. Something bizarre was going on there. And when we did the sys command, it just copied the operating system files over. So, to recap, and I can't get to the CD right now anyway because I loaded from the hard drive now and I'm not loading a driver for the CD. But what I'll probably do next is load a driver for the CD and then do install from the CD, but booting from the hard drive, which is going to sound kind of strange because really to boot DOS all you need is the command com and those hidden IBM files that I showed you, and then it boots. But anyway, to recap, basically in order to get this CD to boot, you have to go into your boot menu, select the CD, and if you're using a computer that isn't using BIOS but is using UEFI, it's probably not even going to boot the CD. What you'll have to do is get into the CMOS settings and change it to be legacy mode, so it'll be able to emulate BIOS basically. So once you do that and you can boot from the CD, then you do an FDisk. If you're using DR-DOS and this drive already had an unknown partition type on it, like NTFS from Windows, you may have to use that one command to allow it to delete those types of partitions. But once you do, you can FDisk, create the primary partition. In my case, I only made it like 800 megabytes because it was locking up at 8 gig. And you'll ask to reboot, load the CD again, then do a sys, and you can copy it over. Or if it boots properly, you may be able to actually do an install of the operating system. DR-DOS was having an issue with that. It didn't like the emulation. So lots of things we had to work through there. But I hope you guys enjoyed this and you learned something. See you next time.